Didn't take long. Brand new White House communications director Anthony Scaramucci has already been fired. Lasted about 10 days. Basically a volatile tornado. He came in, he slammed former chief of staff Reince Priebus. He slammed Steve Bannon, long list of people, said he'll fire everybody he needs to fire to stop the leaks if he needs to. And he's gone. Scaramucci's firing 10 days after he was named to the position via Twitter by Donald Trump, 6 days after he unofficially assumed his role, and 15 days before his formal commencement in the role. So his tenure as White House communications director was the shortest in American history. He ruined many other people's careers, kind of. I mean, he led to Sean Spicer resigning, although now Sean Spicer has a nice cushy book deal. So I don't know. This might have been a good thing in the works for Sean Spicer. He got Reince Priebus fired, but then partially as a result of his own doing, Reince Priebus's replacement, John Kelly, comes in as the new chief of staff and immediately recommends the firing of Anthony Scaramucci. And he also, kind of sadly, right, ruined a lot of his own life. He missed the birth of his own child last week, didn't meet his newborn child for several days after the birth. In the midst of his wife divorcing him, who's just absolutely furious with him for, out of nowhere, just pledging this loyalty to Donald Trump, his 38-year-old wife giving birth to their second child on July 24th, 2 weeks before the due date, while Scaramucci was in West Virginia at that Boy Scout jamboree with Donald Trump. He also is in the process of trying to sell his company, which, by the way, has not yet been approved and might be in question now, depending on how vengeful President Trump wants to be, although we'll talk about that in a little bit. So can we now say, thanks, Trump, instead of thanks, Obama? Being involved with Trump for Anthony Scaramucci has been hugely damaging to his own life and to really his family and so many other people. And there are people who are praising Donald Trump for this being a smart move. What a reasonable and sober decision made by Donald Trump. Trump didn't fire Scaramucci because of what he did. He fired him because other people said, you've got to fire this guy. I mean, if we believe that the reason was, his comments about whether Steve Bannon wants to perform oral sex on himself, those were crude comments. Trump's the grab him by the pussy guy, right? Trump has no problem with these comments in principle. John Kelly reportedly told Trump days ago, you've got to get rid of this guy. Over the weekend, Trump consulted with friends and allies, and they said, you've got to get rid of him. And listen, you normally don't need to check with others to determine whether your brand new hire is out of line when talking to reporters on the record about which Trump staffers want to perform oral sex on themselves. You usually can figure out on your own that's someone that is not a good idea to have working for you.
Well, it sounds like Reince Priebus was ousted because Anthony Scaramucci asserted himself as the alpha, and Priebus didn't really stand up for himself. And then you and John Kelly take over the position of chief of staff, and he asserted himself as the alpha,
yes,
so Scaramucci had to go. And then you also had Sarah Huckabee Sanders trying to rationalize all this.
That was the best.
That Trump fired Scaramucci because of his vulgar comments.
Yeah.
Like you said, this is the grab him by the pussy president. This is the guy who said that Mika Brzezinski couldn't go meet with him at Mar-a-Lago because she was bleeding badly from a facelift.
And that Megyn Kelly was also bleeding from her you-know-where. There's also people praising Trump's kids in all of this, praising Ivanka, and I don't know if the two brothers and Jared Kushner, because they're like, the kids are the voice of reason because they said they agreed with the firing. They also said hiring Scaramucci was a good idea. And the question I have now is, will Trump kibosh the sale of Anthony Scaramucci's firm to a Chinese company, which is subject to approval here in the United States? There might be sort of like an unspoken, or maybe spoken, but maybe unspoken deal where Scaramucci won't take anybody down with him, because Scaramucci has the dirt to take down a lot of people in the Trump administration. And Trump won't block the sale of his company. Like,
I mean, that would be leaking, though, which I guess he's against.
Of course, yeah. Everybody's against leaking, and Scaramucci would have fired everyone over leaking. Until now, he's fired. The reality is, Scaramucci was a pretty accurate representation of Trump in both style and substance. This big scandal over how Scaramucci was comporting himself, talking about Steve Bannon performing oral sex on himself, is pretty similar to Trump talking about grab him by the pussy. It's crass, clueless, and volatile. And it turns out that when you actually have someone representing the real tone and tenor of your White House accurately, it's not good for the White House. This is someone representing Trump really well, and it was embarrassing for Trump, unfortunately.
And now this is the third communications director to go. You have Sean Spicer out, you have Dubkey out, and now Anthony Scaramucci. I mean, you could have prevented this whole long list of recent firings, too, when you talk about Spicer and you talk about Priebus, by just not hiring Scaramucci in the first place. I mean, this whole embarrassment string wouldn't have happened.
I was joking the other day, maybe it was last week or earlier this week, I said, hey, Trump's finally draining the swamp by getting rid of the people that he himself hired. It was a total joke, right? I've now seen that said non-satirically. There are Trumpists now arguing for real. I got a few emails from them, a few tweets from them saying, hey, why are people criticizing Trump for all these firings? He's draining the swamp. This is what he said he would do. Trump is firing people he hired. When he talked about drain the swamp, it didn't mean getting rid of the people that were huge hiring mistakes during the first 6 months of his presidency. I thought Trump knew the best people. He was going to be hiring the real stand-up people for his administration. Apparently not.
Right. Even people who didn't support Trump or did so reluctantly said that he would get the best people to work around him.
If nothing else, he would build a good team.
And it's also funny how we had a poll on davidpakman.com asking who the next Trump official was going to be to leave, either by resigning or being fired. And that's pretty null at this point because two of those options are already gone.
Yeah, half of the people listed in our poll have already been fired or forced to resign. So we had to take that poll down because it was almost instantly outdated. The video you just finished watching was made possible by you through the membership program. You can sign up for membership at davidpakman.com/membership. We are viewer-supported independent media. You can use the coupon code IVoted17 for a 40% discount off of your membership.